Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, Dare to Get a Job. Before we get going with today's event, I'll take care of some housekeeping, do the land acknowledgement, and tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. So if you can hear me and see the slide up on the screen, then you're good to go. However, if you're having trouble hearing me or seeing the slide, let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to assist. If you'd like to listen to this presentation on the phone, you can do that by calling 1-669-900-6833 and using the access code 845-8909-5119 and the passcode 123123. Now, you may have noticed that the mics and video for attendees of the program have been disabled, and that's so that everyone can focus on our presenter for the day. We do, however, welcome your questions and comments. Questions can go in the Q&A, that's the two little speech bubbles, and then the comments can go in the chat, that's the one with the single speech bubble. All right, and now I would like to do the land acknowledgement. The County of Los Angeles recognizes that we occupy land originally and still inhabited and cared for by the Tongva, Tataviam, Serrano, Kizh, and Chumash peoples. We honor and pay respects to their elders, descendants, past, present, and emerging, as they continue their stewardship of these lands and waters. We acknowledge that settler colonization resulted in land seizure, disease, subjugation, slavery, relocation, broken promises, genocide, and multi-generational trauma. This acknowledgement demonstrates our responsibility and commitment to truth, healing, and reconciliation, and to elevating the stories, culture, and community of the original inhabitants of Los Angeles County. We are grateful to have the opportunity to live and work on these ancestral lands. We are dedicated to growing and sustaining relationships with Native peoples and local tribal governments, including, in no particular order, the Fernandino Tataviam Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Tongva Indians of California Tribal Council, the Gabrielino Tongva San Gabriel Band of Mission Indians, the Gabrielino Band of Mission Indians Kizh Nation, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the San Fernando Band of Mission Indians. To learn more about the First Peoples of Los Angeles County, please visit the Los Angeles City County Native American Indian Commission website at lanic.lacounty.gov. All right, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Work Ready program. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. We do that in two ways. One is we lend out laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots for 6-week loans out of 27 library locations. And two is we provide virtual events just like this one on a range of work-related topics, from basics like resumes, cover letters, and interviews to deep dives into various careers and other subjects that help you succeed at work. And you can see well over 50 of those past classes at any time by checking out the work and career playlist on our YouTube channel, which I'm going to post in the chat right now. And the Work Ready program is made possible due to funds provided by the American Rescue Plan. Before we get started with today's event, I also want to let you know what we have coming up next time. And it's not going to be next week, but the week after. It's going to be Tuesday, August 13th at 11 a.m. And by popular demand, we're bringing you Work Ready using AI in your job search. Artificial intelligence seems to be everywhere these days, and I will be giving you an approachable explanation to how AI works, as well as how you can use artificial intelligence to help you prepare your work documents and in your job search. program is, of course, free, just like all of our library programs. I posted a link in the chat, and you can register for that at your leisure. And if you'd like to learn more about library programs, you can go to lacountylibrary.org and tap on the top right-hand side. They'll give you our whole calendar, in person and virtual. If you're only interested in virtual programs like this one, then you can hover over that events button and you'll get a little drop down. So it's virtual programming. Click on that and you'll get our Zoom events, also all ages, youth, teens, adults, older adults, and on a variety of topics, all free for you. All right, and now it's time to get started with today's program. Work ready, dare to get a job. And our presenter today is Aneesha DuBois. Aneesha DuBois is a 2006 graduate of HBCU Norfolk State University with a degree in mass communications journalism. Her professional career spans across music, sports, pop culture, fashion, voice acting, and children's media. She held roles at Music Choice in New York City as a programming coordinator, a writer for Clear Channel Communications, a production coordinator at Comcast Sportsnet in Washington, D.C. She was an associate producer at E! News and a former fashion public relations director for Wild Fox, and then all the brands under Australian fashion labels, respectively. She was also an adjunct professor at FIDM in Los Angeles, where she taught an Intro to PR course from 2020 to 2024. In 2019, Aneesha founded luxury e-commerce retailer Well Unknown, which focuses on emerging fashion brands, where she serves as the site's creative director. She also freelances as a public relations consultant for fashion brands. Currently, Aneesha is signed by Atlas Talent, where she works as a voice actor for Nickelodeon, Mattel, Moonbug, Paramount Video Games, several films on Netflix, and more. Aneesha is the creator of children's animated podcast, The Holidays, which airs on Go Kid Go and wherever you get your podcasts. An avid traveler and mother of a 5-year-old named Poppy, she created a children's travel brand, Passport Poppy, which consists of 2 books and a third on the way, the ABCs of travel flashcards, and a YouTube channel narrated by Poppy as a puppet that documents their adventures and travels around the world. More recently, she took on a volunteer role with the Children's Media Association as the Global Co-Director of Events West. In addition to all of the above, she authored a self-help journal entitled It Always Works in Your Favor. And now I bring to the stage Aneesha DuBois. Aneesha, the stage is yours.
Hello, I'm so excited to be back. I think this is my third work ready
It's your
presentation.
third time. We're always happy to have you back.
Yeah, every time I see an email from you, I'm like, let's do it.
I appreciate it.
I always have something new to share, so I'm always super excited, when you reach out.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'll go ahead and I will share my complicated desktop, but I'm gonna make this full view so that let's see here, full screen mode. All right, is it full screen for you? Can you? Okay,
Perfect.
awesome. So today we are daring to get the job. And I love that you chose this as the topic because you gave me a starting point. And I think throughout my career, as you probably know, is that I've always dared to get the job. And as I go through my presentation, in my work experience, you'll see that, I probably shouldn't have got the job, but I always dared to get it and I always somehow got it. So I'll work you through that or walk you through that. So what I've learned since graduating from college in 2006, these are the characteristics you need when you're daring to get the job. And I say that these are needed because when you are graduating or you're switching, career fields, you're competing against people who may have more experience than you. You are competing against people who may be younger than you, who understand what AI is or what TikTok is and how that all works. And you may have more experience than the other candidates, but you are up against someone who knows someone who knows someone who gets them the job. So that's why I say all of these characteristics as I move through my career were all things that I that probably weren't innate. I think me as an Aries, a lot of these were innate, but a lot of these characteristics were learned, right? Being charismatic, being fiery, being competitive with myself and no one else, energetic, being confident, passionate, being impulsive, as you'll see, as you'll hear, being independent, right? And just doing what I want to do, and which was one of the things I wanted to do was move to LA, and nobody, including my mom or my best friend, wanted me to do that. Being determined, being passionate. I wanted to start this off by saying, sorry if you can hear something in the background. I think there's like a gardener out there. But I'll get into this more in a second. But when I was hired at Wall Fox as a fashion PR manager before I became the PR director, the fashion PR director at the time, she told me, she said, we had went to a Fenty event at the London Hotel. And she said, you weren't the most qualified, but you were the most excited. And she said that after she had a few drinks. So I don't know if she meant it as a dig to me, but it really wasn't. It was like, oh, so I wasn't the most qualified, but I still got the job based off my excitement for the role. And that was all I needed to hear. So again, whether she meant it as a diss or not, it was like, thank you. And again, even if you don't feel like you have these characteristics, I do feel like they are characteristics that you can learn as you go through your career, whether you're starting out or switching careers, which I've done plenty of times. So like I said, I graduated from Norfolk State University in 2006 with a degree in mass communications and journalism. And the three things I learned there, the importance of internships and or volunteering, the experience, like, I may not remember what I learned in 12 of those classes that I paid a lot of money for at Norfolk State, but I remember the experience, and that's what holds true. And then developing relationships, because that's where it started. Like, that's how I got my first job after college. So when you are in school, whether you're a college student or whether you are going back to school, daring to get the job for me started in college interning, right? Because even when I was teaching at FITM, I would always tell my students intern, because you don't want to spend 4 years studying something and then you get that job that you studied 4 years for, and then you get into that role and you hate it, right? I swear by internships, right? It lets you know, oh, this is a piece of what I will be doing. And then if you don't like that, you can still, switch and alter, what your major is or what your minor is. I also will say, in daring to get the job, a lot of times getting internships can be like getting a job, because right, you need you got to apply 6 months in advance, and then you got to get what's it called when people vouch for you? I forgot the word, it's slipping my mind. But you have to get I forgot the word. It'll come to me in a second. But you have to have people vouch for you. It's like a whole process. And like, for instance, let's just say a company that's starting out, let's say if it's a jewelry company starting out that you really want to work for, even if they don't have internships available, you can always reach out to volunteer. That's exactly what I did at Music Choice. When I was my junior year of college, my mass communications group, they took us on a trip to New York City, and we went to different places like Black Enterprise Magazine, Music Choice. We went to BET, and we went to visit people who went to Norfolk State, who were alma mater of the university. And I remember going in there, and it's kind of intimidating when you're going, because you're in there with a bunch of other college students, and everybody at that time, back then, everybody's handing out business cards, right? So you're giving the VP of music programming, he's getting like 30 business cards from college kids, right? But once I left, when I got back to Norfolk, Virginia, I emailed and I said, thank you so much. I would love to stay in contact. I graduate in a year. It's like, oh yeah, sure, stay in touch, right? Pretty sure they touched everybody. And then, but I listened. And so I stayed in touch. And then the summer before going into my senior year of college, I reached out and I said, hey, I'm from New Jersey, so I'll be up, close to New York. Can I come and volunteer just for the day? And they said, yeah, come on, went up. I went up, spent my own money, went up for the day, and I volunteered. And I just saw what it was like, music programming. The channel, they had me walk around, showed me the studio. I think they had an artist come in that day. It was just me getting, like kind of, sort of a day in the life of what it would be if I were to work there. I did that. When I left, I thanked them again. And then I said, I graduate in a year, I would love to work here. Say, yeah, we don't have anything open now, but keep in touch. And about 3 months before I graduated, I reached out. and they said, we have a position. I then there's something called like the Chinese bus in Virginia where you take an overnight bus to New York City. And I took that from my college to New York. I interviewed and I got the job. And that was my first intro in daring to get the job. And again, reaching out. I'll probably repeat this again, but I would tell my students at FINM, when you're reaching out to someone, to intern, to volunteer, to see, if they have any positions available, the worst that they can say is that the job has been filled or we don't have anything available. The worst that they can do is not reply to your email, right? They'll never say, don't you ever message me again. Like they won't do that. So always reach out, because I'm going to get into this more too, but you have to make yourself seen. And then in Norfolk State, the experience is what led, right? Like I spent 4 years earning a bachelor's degree in mass communications, but I observed and I learned that I didn't have to spend the rest of my life committed to working in mass communications. And I think this is a breakdown. My grandmother, when, as you'll hear in a second, I switched jobs a lot. I switched career paths a lot. They were good career paths, but she never understood why I would want this job so bad. I get this job that I wanted so bad. And then after a couple of years, I would quit. And she could not fathom it. She would even get upset with me at times. And I think, it's just a difference in the generations, right? And it's no disrespect to my grandparents and who came before them. But when they were growing up, they were taught that you get a job, you get a great job. And once you get that great job, you stay in that great job for 40 years or whatever until you retire. And then you go on and do your passions and things like that. And I just think the generations that are coming now were just a bit different. And I don't think anything was wrong with them and nothing's wrong with us. It's just a difference in the times. So, again, I'm a person who goes after my interests and my passions. And once I feel like I've reached the max or where I'm at a certain place. And again, the reason why I left Music Choice was because I didn't, I was the programming coordinator there, and I didn't see myself. Oh, we'll get into that. Let me just finish this slide. Relationships, so important, so important. Relationships can open doors a degree cannot, and you'll hear about that as I go through my slide. So at Music Choice, again, I volunteered, I followed up, I kept in touch, I was hired. While I was there, I was great at what I did, right? I was great at what I was hired to do, which was program several of the music channels. But I made my other interests known, like what I would love to do. Back then MTV VJs were a thing, and I wanted to be an on-air personality. I wanted to do voiceover back then, because I did it in college. And so I made those interests known. And because I was so great at what I was hired to do, my roles expanded. So I would do small little voiceover things for the channel. I would do some like quick on-air intro things for the channel. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? Like I'm exploring other interests, like, oh, that interests me, but I'm doing what I was hired to do. So I'm not lacking in that, or I'm not slacking in that, but I made my other interests known. And I think that expanded my horizons. And then at Music Choice, after about 2 years, I felt like I hit the glass ceiling, right? I just felt like I knew that I didn't want to be one day the VP of programming at Music Choice, right? I didn't want to be that. And so it got to a point where I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's okay. I want to do something else. I want to explore something else. I had this plan in my mind that I wanted to live in New York, DC, and then make LA home. And so when I did resign, when I felt like I personally, Music Choice wasn't holding me back at all. I personally felt like I didn't want to go any further. So it was my time to exit. And I resigned on great terms. So much so that I worked at Music Choice from 2006 to 2008. And now, 2024, about 2 weeks ago, I emailed Dave, who was the founder and is still the current CEO of Music Choice. And I said, hey, Dave, you probably don't remember me, but I worked at Music Choice as a music programmer. I said, I now have a kids brand called Passport Poppy. We just released our first song. It's called the Passport Poppy Travel Song. I would love if I can, submit it to whoever is programming the kids channel. And if I can get it, if I can submit it for play on the kids channel. He said, yeah, he maybe wrote back like a day and a half later, said, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember you. Absolutely. This is the person. I sent them your info. If you don't hear from them right away, you let me know. I heard from the person. She connected. I sent her everything she needed, the song, the the visuals, and now my Passport Poppy travel song is going to be on Music Choice. So it's just how things work. So even again, like if you feel like, I wanted this job so bad, right? But I got this job. I felt like I outgrew this job, but I left on great terms, so much so that 20 or not 20, maybe like 15, whatever years later, I'm able to go back and reconnect with them. And now they're still helping me, right? And I was determined, and determination was one of the characteristics that I talked about that helps you daring to get the job. Impulsive, my impulsiveness. I don't know if it's the Aries in me, but when it comes to relocation, again, people thought, wait, you wanted to live in New York so bad. Now you're moving to DC. And then you wanted to live in DC so bad. Now you're moving to LA. And like I mentioned earlier, my mother, my grandmother, and like three of my favorite aunts, I mean, my favorite cousin too. Like they did not want me to go. They told me, I hate LA. Why would you? Well, I'm like, well, you hate LA. I think I'm gonna love LA. So I am going to LA. And I think that was impulsiveness. That I think works always in my favor. So impulsive in timing, yes. But again, like I said, I always had this plan in my head, and I wholeheartedly believe that thoughts become things. And I have, like Oleg was saying, I have a self-help journal that I wrote called It Always Works in Your Favor. I always feel like things are happening, not necessarily to you, but things are happening for you to move you and to position you in places where you need to be, right? Where you can work for the greater good. I also believe wholeheartedly in meeting the opportunity. Meet the opportunity is putting yourself in position, right? So for instance, I know I'll get to this in a second more in depth, but when I wanted to work for E-News, E-News is based in Los Angeles. So I can't be in DC or New York and want to work for E-News, right? I have to get myself there. And I had to meet the opportunity. So if I want to work for E-News, if I want to be serious in voice acting, I know that LA is the hub for both. And that is where I had to be, putting myself in position. And then, what I did versus what if. I never ever want to live with the what if. Like for instance, when I left DC for LA, I knew nobody at NBC LA. I knew who owned E-News at the time. I knew nobody at E-News. I knew one person in LA. Oh, two. My cousin lived here too. But even with my family telling me, no, don't go, don't go, I never wanted to live with the what if, because in DC, I wanted a job at E-News. I wanted to be a producer at E-News. I wanted to work at E-News. And within 4 months, I moved to LA January 2011, January 2nd, 2011. In April 2011, I was hired at E-News. So what if I would have said, okay, my favorite cousin, my best friend, my mom, they're all here on the East Coast. Like, they don't want me to go. Okay, I won't go. Like, what if? Like, I'm really a working voiceover actor for Nickelodeon and Mattel and Blippi and Netflix. What if I listened to them? So I did it versus what if. And I will say, even though my mom didn't want me to move to LA or for whatever her personal reasons was, she would always tell me, she said, worse come to worse, you can always come back home, but just go and try it out. And that's exactly what I did. So for me, I never wanted to live with the what if. I always go on faith and knowing I'm going where I'm led. Like, I'm not trying to become a doctor or do anything that I don't want to do. I'm going where I'm led, and it just always seems to work out in my favor. My impulsiveness works out in my favor. So again, after I left Music Choice, I moved to Washington, D.C., and I worked as a sports production coordinator for Comcast Sportsnet. And then they changed the name. I forgot what the name is called now, but back then when I worked there from 2008 to like 2011, Comcast Sportsnet was in charge of all they were the station for all of the local teams. So the Redskins, which is now, they have a new name. But the Mystics, the Capitals, the basketball team, that was they were the Nationals, that was their network. And so I was the programming coordinator. So I'm production coordinator, I'm sorry. I was up at 4 a.m. heading to FedEx Field to lay the lines for the visiting teams who were coming in. And it was really cool. I loved it, right? but I was everybody's best friend. I got tickets to all the games. It was an amazing job. I really, really loved it. And again, I stepped out of my comfort zone, leaving music programming and going to sports programming. And it just worked out for me. I excelled at what I did. I was great at what I did. Or I was great at what I was hired to do, and I was soon poached to do more. So there was some guys who worked in production and said, hey, you want to do like a weekend show called Washington Post Live? And I was the on-air talent. And what I would do on the weekends is I was merging sports and pop culture. So I would say, Serena Williams is coming out with a clothing line, or, Dwayne Wade is coming out with the new drink beverage, or, LeBron James is in a new movie. Like, I was always talking about the merging between sports and pop culture. And it was great. Loved it. Every weekend. You couldn't tell me I wasn't cool. I was on TV in DC on the weekends. But then what happened is I take hints and I listen. And again, like, who knows how long I would have stayed there at Comcast Sportsnet. But my last year there, in the middle of the year, you have your reviews. And so I was called in my office for my review. Again, great reviews. You're doing great. You're doing a great job. I was told by my supervisor. At the time, he was the director of operations, and he told me that he was upset that the production team gave me that opportunity to be on TV. Like, he told me that to my face in my review. And I said to myself then, silently, like, right then in that moment is when I began planning my exit. I said to myself, this was June, July. By December, I wanted to be gone, because clearly he does not want me to do anything outside of what I was hired to do. He didn't want me to flourish for whatever reason. Who knows? Whatever his reason was not my business. But at that moment, I began to plan my exit. How do I get to LA? What do I do? I remember maybe 3 months, maybe like September, October, I changed my number from 609 New Jersey, where I'm from, to 310, which was Beverly Hills in California. Like, I was planning my exit and doing things that strategically would get me to LA and where I needed to be. And again, everything works in your favor. Wholeheartedly believe it. And I remember it was maybe like November-ish. I remember I was coming back from lunch at Comcast Sportsnet, went to my desk, and I remember I walked by the main office, and it was HR and my two bosses, the director of operations and the one right below him. They were in there talking, and I was like, that can't be good. Like, what are they talking about? Why am I not in there? And then I came back. They said, Aneesha, can you come in? I went in the office, and they said, your role is being merged into something else. So my role as a production coordinator was being merged into like production of communication, something. It was like real techie. And they said, listen, you are more than welcome to apply for it. And they said, or you can take a 3-month severance and your last day will be December 31st. Like, how does that even happen, right? He said what he said in June. I started planning my exit quietly, and I said I wanted to be gone by December. And in November, they told me in a month would be my last day, or I could take a 3-month severance. Like, hello, like, why wouldn't I take that 3-month severance? I can use that, or I use that when I moved to LA, and I was able to focus on getting a job at E! News and not having to worry about hurry up and trying to find work. I had the charismatic characteristic there because I feel like being charismatic is what helped me, get this job, because I had never sports programmed, wired, been in a sports truck with the executive, never did that in my life. So I think me being charismatic and again being excited about that role got me there. And then I moved to Los Angeles, which I love so much. I actually, excuse my like messy bun here, but I actually just got off a plane. My plane landed from DC this morning at 9 a.m. I got to my car at 9:30, and I now live like near Woodland Hills, and I pulled up to my house at 10:30. So I love LA. I'm never leaving it. I go home. Well, I go to the East Coast probably like once a month, and we travel a lot, but I am always, LA is home for me. So confidence, the characteristic, being confident. I really bet on myself when I moved to LA. Again, I moved here January 2nd, 2011. A friend of a friend, she had a loft, a beautiful loft downtown LA. I slept on her couch for 3 months, and I just was finding out what was like, who was hiring, E! News, but like, how could I get in? And I remember a position came up for, I would have been the assistant. I would have been the assistant to the segment producer. So E News has four segment producers, one that may work on sports, one that may work on movies, one that may work on music. And so they have four segment producers. I would have been their assistant. I applied for that job, went in, thought I killed it. It was awesome. And then I remember by this time I had moved into my own loft downtown LA. And I remember I got the email that I didn't get the job. And I remember feeling devastated. Like that was my only shot. And at that time I had just moved in. I was on my air mattress in my loft downtown. And I was like gutted. And I remember my mom saying, like, just give it one more month. Just like you'll figure it out. And how it almost doesn't even sound real how it all works out. But I remember getting a call from someone named Peggy Jo Abraham. She was the producer at E! News Now. And she said, hey, I just received your resume. I would love for you to come in and interview to be an assistant producer for E! News Now. And I was like, wait, like how is this happening? So I went in, I interviewed, and I remember going in. What's so crazy about this is when I went in for my interview for the assistant to the segment producers for E! News, I gave them my updated resume that had Comcast Sportsnet on it, right? The career I just left. And when I went into interview for this, assistant producer position for E! News Now, they didn't even have Comcast Sportsnet on there. So for some reason, they saw me qualified and it looked like I hadn't worked in 2 years. I don't know how it all worked. To this day, I'm puzzled as to how they saw me qualified. But anyway, I went in. I remember writing like mock stories, like Serena Williams was just announced, blah, 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 like just writing mock stories, just showing my researching skills. And I went in and I interviewed, and I was so like, I just knew I had it. And I always believe in the power of the follow-up. So after I interview for something, I always reach out and I say, thank you for your time. And then when I didn't hear back, I reached out again, like, just wanted to follow up and see if you all were closer to choosing a candidate, right? They're not going to say, Aneesha, stop bugging me, right? They're probably not going to respond, or because they hired someone, or they'll let me know that, they're still making a decision. And when I reached out, I remember her saying, yeah, we're still choosing candidates. And then I remember I got a call about 2 weeks after I originally interviewed, and I was offered the position at E! News. And I remember Peggy telling me, Peggy was apologizing to me because it was during my hiring period and interview period was during the royal wedding of Kate and William in London. So of course, everybody was like, forget you for a second. Like, they're getting married. We have half the team in London. And so this has to take a back seat. And she apologized for that, but I ended up getting the job. And I think I'll talk about this too more in depth, but when you get the interview, like, go in there. Matter of fact, I'll wait because I'm going to talk about that more when I talk about my experience in fashion. So again, I was confident. I got the job. I was at E! News for about 2 years. And then I said to myself, I don't want to be an executive producer at E! News. Like, I was tired of talking, no disrespect to Kim Kardashian, but I was tired of talking about Kim Kardashian and what she wore and who she was dating and who was on a secret date at Disneyland. I loved it at first. I couldn't wait to be a part of pop culture, but things changed and I didn't want to do it anymore. It no longer interests me. And so I left E! News. I resigned from E! News. And I did go through a rough patch for about a year because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do. And I think I'm a big believer, again, of thoughts become things in the universe. And I couldn't figure out, what do you want to do? I was applying to be anything, an assistant this, director this. I was just all over the place, but I couldn't make my mind up. And I remember saying, okay, like, what do you want to do? And I knew I loved PR because working at E! News as a producer, my job was to talk to the PR, the celebrity PR, the PR for a fashion brand, the PR for Coca-Cola. Like, my job was to talk to all PR people to get the assets, whether it was images, quotes, or whatever, to put on the show. So I knew I loved PR, and too, because working in PR, you get a lot of cool free stuff. So I knew I loved PR, and I said, okay, but what type of PR? Because you can be PR for Burger King, you can be PR for President Obama, you can be PR for the governor, you can be PR for Burger King, like you can be PR for anything. But I was like, what type of PR? And I knew I love fashion. I've always loved fashion since I was a kid. I get that part from my dad. And I said, okay, fashion PR. And I remember going online and finding a job finding it was a job description or job opening for a PR manager at Wall Fox. I had never heard of Wall Fox, but clearly everybody else had, right? Beyonce had worn it, Paris Hilton wore it all the time. It was at Nordstrom and Saks. So everybody, I love fashion, but I had never heard of Wall Fox. And I remember I applied for the job. So I applied for the job the way they said apply, but then also I emailed. So when you're applying for a job, more often than not, it'll say job descriptions, all that stuff, but it'll say let me move to my next slide. It'll say who you'll be reporting to. So in it said, you're going to be reporting to the director of PR. So I went on Google, because Google is everything. I went on Google and I typed in Wall Fox, director of PR, and popped an old press release, and it had her name. And her name was Krista, and I found her email. I emailed her. I said, hello, my name is Aneesha. I just emailed for the job. I just applied for the job on Indeed. I think it was Indeed. I just applied for the job on Indeed.com, but I also wanted to send you my resume. She emailed me back within 15 minutes and said, hey, I'm actually based in New York, but that we're looking for a PR manager to be in LA, which is where the company and the main office is. I'm actually in LA right now doing interviews. Can you come in Wednesday? Went in Wednesday, and I remember, again, I never fashion PR'd anything in my life, but I knew I had to set myself apart, right? I never did this before. So I wrote up a mock press release. I had ideas for brand expansion. Like I went in there with because when you go into a job interview, they have your resume, right? They've looked over your resume and about 20 other resumes, right? They're looking at the same sheet of paper, and it's basically you telling them. It's your resume is you telling them what you can do, right? Aside from the other questions that they ask all the candidates. But my thought was, I want to show them what I can do. If they're going to give me 15 minutes or 30 minutes or however long this interview is going to be in front of them, I want to show them what I can do. So I walked in there, like my resume was at the bottom we never even talked about my resume. I just showed them, here's some mock press releases I wrote, because my job as a PR manager was to write press releases. I had ideas for brand expansion. That was going to be part of my job. How can you get us in other places and collaborations? And that's what I did. And I remember they told me they would choose a candidate by Friday. I didn't hear back Friday, and I had never been to Coachella. And my cousin was like, you're so bummed. Like, let's go to Coachella, your very first one. I'm like, okay, sure. I went to Coachella, and I remember, again, I'm very big in the universe. I think I was flying home, and I remember, this is back when I listened to the crew on the airplane when they say, turn your phone off. I don't do that anymore. But I remember turning my phone off, and I said to myself, when I turn my phone back on, like I'm gonna have an offer. And I turned my phone back on when I landed, and I had an offer at Wall Fox, and I became the PR manager for Wall Fox, and I was soon promoted to PR director at Wall Fox. I want to get into like some nitpicky things, what I've learned, while at Wall Fox and then at Australian fashion labels. Indeed or LinkedIn, I think it is, they have this cool feature now that when you apply for a job, it says like, oh, be one of the first 75 applicants. At both Wall Fox and Australian fashion labels, I was tasked like hiring my team. I only had one, I say team, but it was only me and a coordinator. I don't know how other huge HR departments work, but forgive me, but when I was, more specifically, when I was hiring for my PR coordinator at Australian fashion labels, I probably got 120 resumes. I am sorry to anyone who applied for that role, but I did not go through 120 resumes. I think I may have said, give me 7, the number 11, 1, 2, 3, give me number 27. Like I was just like lotterying it. And I was just pulling random resumes. Again, I don't know how other companies who have HR, huge departments do it, but I don't know if they go through 500 applications. And then now there's programs that when you apply, the hiring people on the other side, they put in keywords. So if your resume doesn't hit these keywords, Yeah, you're applicant number two, but because your resume didn't have these keywords, you're not even, you don't even make it to the pile. So I say all that to say, like, you have to make yourself seen. So again, when you see the job description, if it, like I have here, years of experience don't matter. If you feel like you can do everything that's in the responsibilities, never mind the qualifications, right? And again, I'm not saying I'm a fashion PR, children's media person. I'm not going to go out and apply to be a therapist or a doctor or anything like that, right? But if I know I have the passion to do it, I think for the PR manager position at Wallfox, I think it said like 2 years or 3 years or a degree in PR. I had none of that, but I knew all of those responsibilities I could do and do well. And I wanted to do it. I was excited to do it. So I think, when hiring people put the years, oh, you need 10 years, 15 years. I don't listen to that. I don't think that matters because again, the hiring manager at Wallfox told me I was not the most qualified, but I was the most excited. So which means I beat out the person who probably had 2 years, 3 years experience in PR or who probably had a degree in PR. I beat that person out. So again, loosely, don't really buy it. If you think you want that job and you think you can do that job, apply for that job. So yeah, that part, just in the power of the follow-up, reach out. Whoever it says you're going to be applying to, reach out, apply, like reach out to that person and say, again, you have to make yourself seen because you are one of 75 or however many applicants. You just have to dare to get it. Do things a little bit unconventional to make yourself seen. Because you could be who they want, but you were applicant number 76 and they stopped taking applications at 75, right? Make yourself be seen. So again, at Wallfox, I loved what I did. I traveled to Paris and London Fashion Week and Miami Swim Week, and it was we did collaborations with Barbie and Mattel, Coca-Cola. It was the most amazing career. But what was the issue at Wallfox was Wallfox was a brand that everybody wore, but it was more of a casual brand. So celebrities wore it, but they wore it to yoga, they wore it on their couch. And I had all of these amazing contacts at Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, and I wanted to up my game a little bit. And so I left Wallfox after 3 years, and I applied for a job at Australian fashion labels, and I was their PR director of America for all 5 brands. So Australian Fashion Labels had 5 brands and I was overcharged of all of them. I want to backtrack for a bit, in knowing when to move, right? Job qualifications and responsibilities and mismatch. Like if you see that, I think that goes back more to applying. If you see that the job qualifications, like what they're like, the responsibilities of the role, and then they're telling you, okay, you'll do this, 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 but you got to have 20 years experience and you got to have done all this. And it's like, but you really need all of that to do this. I think don't let that deter you, right? There's always a new way of thinking. Like, it's kind of cliche to say, but like out with the old, in with the new, like how they did PR back then is not how they may be doing PR now, right? PR now involves TikTok. So the person who may be a VP of PR, in their maybe 50s, 60s, and now the brand needs to catch up with the times and be on TikTok. I highly doubt that person in their 50s and 60s really cares about what TikTok is. So they need to bring in someone fresh who understands and knows TikTok and how to do it. Like even me, I'm very young. I'm only 40 years old, and I know I probably don't look it. I'm only 40 years old, and even back at Australian fashion labels when TikTok was becoming a thing, back then I was like 32, 33, and even then I was like, I could care less. So I needed to hire someone who may not even have all that experience, but knew TikTok, understood it, knows, because there's a new app popping up every 10 minutes that the world tells us we have to be a part of. Right now there's AI and ChatGPT, and I'm like, wait, what? But hiring someone who knows, like how that world works, right? Because I don't know everything, and I may not be interested in even knowing everything or knowing that part, but hiring someone who does, yeah, like I just feel like, just being open again. If you see the qualifications and responsibilities are a mismatch, apply. If you see that you can do those responsibilities and they're calling for 10 years and you only have 7 years experience, or they're calling for 4 years experience and you only have 2, or even if they're calling for 2 years experience and you only have internship experience, apply. Dare to get it, because you are who they need. Everything for a reason and in your favor, and all great things come to an end and forcing your hand. This all goes to Australian fashion labels. Again, I was the PR director there of all of America. It was an amazing, amazing job. But what they wanted to do, again, it was a business decision, so I couldn't hate them for it. What they were paying me and my PR coordinator in salary, they could pay they could pay less or a quarter of that to an agency, a PR agency, and have 8 to 10 people working on the brand. So to them, it made sense. But if you know PR and how it works, like, yeah, you're going to pay them, but now you're one of 12 brands they work with. So depending on what you pay them, they're going to probably throw you a little pennies, little pieces of coverage to keep you happy. But if let's say if you're one fashion brand and then you have a bigger fashion brand. So if a Vogue opportunity comes up, an opportunity to dress Michelle Obama or Beyonce comes up, who do you think they're going to give that opportunity to, right? They're going to give it to the brands that's paying them the most money. So again, all great things come to an end, and forcing your hand. And it was Australian fashion labels. They came to us and they wanted to part ways. They gave me a severance, and it was, again, it wasn't what, because at that time I had only been there about a year and a half. It wasn't what I expected to happen, but it did happen, and I'm glad it happened, because again, right, everything works in your favor. And this pushed me into entrepreneurship. And let me backtrack and say that they knew it wasn't a bad idea, because they switched PR agencies, I think twice, and then they went back to hiring someone in-house. But them letting me go and giving me the severance, my thing, I sat with myself like, okay, what do I do? Do I apply for another job? Like, I'm in this weird space. And my thought immediately was, I was so great at building and marketing these other multi-million-dollar brands. Why can't I do that for myself? Why can't I build something and market and build the heck out of that? So when Australian fashion labels took the title of Fashion PR Director Americas from me, they didn't take my experience. They didn't take my contacts and my relationships. All that came with me, the ideas, my determination, my independence, me being a fiery soul, getting all these press hits. They didn't take any of that. All they took was the title. So I still had all that stuff to do things on my own. And again, I think everything happens for a reason. So I left Australian fashion labels. It was in 2018. I went into the role of entrepreneurship, and you'll see on the next slide all the things that I do. I do a lot of things, which, it sounds nuts. It'll probably drive you crazy hearing everything I do now. But I left there in 2018. I had a severance so I can sit for a second, see what I wanted to do. I was still doing a little bit of traveling, and then the ideas hit me. And then like all of this, like everything I do now, I couldn't have done being at Australian fashion labels, right? Because my time, 40 hours plus a week and traveling for them, I couldn't have done anything for myself. So them forcing my hand, it all worked in my favor, because it pushed me into entrepreneurship. And then, when the pandemic hit in 2020, everything was taking a hit, and everything that I was doing wasn't taking a hit. So again, everything just worked, in my favor, and them forcing my hand, or, wanting to part ways, it led me to fulfill my new and true purpose. And so I call myself the master of all chosen trades. And I say that because there's this quote that people shorten, and it says, "Jack of all trades, master of none." And I think that's complete crap, because you can absolutely master anything you want to do. If you have a passion for it, it's for a reason. It's in your mind. These ideas won't leave your mind, or this job role, like, it won't leave your mind, because it's for a reason. You have it in you because it's something that you're supposed to accomplish. It's something that only you, out of everyone in this amazing world, it's something that only you can bring into this world. And I'll talk about all of these things on this screen, but even when I was doing Passport Poppy, when I came with the name Passport Poppy, again, like, so left Australian fashion labels with no job. I ended up getting pregnant, which is insane. I had my daughter in 2019. And then I think it was like 2021, we were getting on a plane to go to some place. And she was walking down the jet bridge. And I was like, oh, look at Passport. I took a picture and I said, oh, look at Passport Poppy. And I was like, Passport Poppy, Passport Poppy. Like we travel. Like I have a kid who loves to travel, like Passport Poppy. And that's how it was birthed. And I could not believe that when I went on the US government trademark website, when I searched for the trademark Passport Poppy, no one had it. And I was like, this is for me. Like this idea was for me to bring to the world. Like not, they didn't, this wasn't for Kylie Jenner or whoever. This is for me to bring into the world. And things like that, like just blow my mind that no one else had this idea. So I call myself the master of all chosen trades only because these are all things I wanted to do. I was led to do these things. So voice acting, I've always had a weird little young crazy voice, and it's worked out for me how I'm able to do it, and even like how that worked. And I'll tell you that story really quickly because I know we're coming up on time, but I was working at Wall Fox. I wanted to get into voiceover, and voiceover in LA is a whole different beast, right? It's like classes and agents and all that stuff. And someone had reached out to me and she said, hey, one of my friends loved Wall Fox. She recently passed away. We're doing a benefit. Would you mind donating a basket to be auctioned off? My job is PR. Absolutely. Yes, here you go. Sent a huge basket. She said, I'm so thankful. Like, thank you so much. I'll let you know how it goes. I didn't expect to hear from her again. I was like, sure, no problem. She wrote back about 2 weeks later. She sent an image of her friend who had since passed away. And the girl was in her hospital bed wearing like the Wall Fox t-shirt. And only then did I look at this woman's signature, her email signature, and she was the VP of voice. Like, I'm sorry, she was like the director of voice casting at Nickelodeon. I think that was her title. And I was like, oh my God. So when she first emailed me 2 weeks ago, I didn't even notice it. And I reached out and I said, I've been wanting to get back into voiceover. How? She said, okay, well, this is who we work. This is the agency that we work with in LA. This is who we pull our voices from. And lo and behold, that was probably like almost 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And I've been a working VO actor since. Again, I do voices for Netflix and Mattel and MTV and Quick Trip and from promo to animation. So I do voiceover and I love it so much. It's so cool when you can walk. Like when I love Target. So we go into Target and my daughter sees like all the voices, all the dolls for the voices that I do, from Monster High to Enchantimals, to LOL Surprise. Like Oleg was saying, I started Well Unknown. So that's what I started after I left Australian fashion labels because it was still fashion. And it's Well Unknown is a luxury e-tailer that focuses on emerging luxury brands, right? So I'm still able to travel to Paris Fashion Week and get us press and buy and all that cool stuff. But this time I'm just doing it for myself. And Well Unknown was actually a fashion blog that I had. And I was like, yeah, I can't be an influencer. I can't do this. But I kept the name. I kept whatever I purchased or however the domain I think I had purchased. I never let it go. And then about 7 years later, that was like, oh, I have Well Unknown, makes perfect sense. So I have Well Unknown, Passport Poppy, which started as one book. It's now 2 books, Passport Poppy at Home, Passport Poppy in Paris, and now I'm working on Passport Poppy in London. My illustrator actually just sent me some pages 17, 18, 19 that I need to approve. So that'll be out by the end of the year. And then I have the ABCs of Travel flashcards, like teaching kids like Y stands for yoke, which is the steering wheel of an airplane. And then I have the YouTube channel that I launched about a year ago, and I didn't want my kid to be the talent on a YouTube channel, right? I want her to remain a kid. And let's just say we're in Africa and I need her to like perform and she doesn't want to perform, then like the whole channel's messed up. So I did voices. So I had a puppet created that looks like Poppy. So I now travel the world with my real Poppy and the puppet Poppy. And it's just teaching kids like, we're in Costa Rica, we're in Africa. I had the puppet in Switzerland and Paris in April for my birthday, in Aruba just 2 weeks ago. So the Passport Poppy YouTube channel, and I was actually in Paris in April when I found out that it was now on YouTube Kids, because any content on YouTube Kids is selected by the team at Google. You just can't apply to be on YouTube Kids, right? They have to choose you. So I was so happy, and crazy that I found out while I was in Paris. And all of these things I'm doing now is just me being competitive with myself and just figuring out like what I want to do new and where am I being led. At FITM, I taught there for 4 years, and I was an adjunct professor, and I taught an intro to PR class. And the familiar part there is that I used to get all of my interns from FITM. And I had already left AFL, Australian Fashion Labels, and I reached out to FITM and I said, hey, I used to get my interns from you all. I would just love to come and talk to the students. Like I wanted nothing from it. I just wanted to come and talk and just tell them my experience and all that stuff. So I went, I chatted with about 20 students, and I got an email later that day that said, Aneesha, thank you so much for coming. The students said you were the best speaker they had ever heard. Would you be interested in teaching an intro to PR class? And at first I was like, no, like that wasn't the plan. I just wanted to come and say hi. But I knew that education and teaching was somewhat in me because my grandmother was a teacher for 35 years. It was her passion. It was a career she loved, and she stayed in it until she retired. So I knew I had that bit of education gene in me. So I did that and I loved it. And I would probably still be teaching at FITM, but FITM was sold to ASU, Arizona State University. So, I gracefully bowed out. I wanted to do something new with my time. And I still do PR consulting, and that's where I'm just coming from. I helped my best friend out with her essential oil company, and I booked her to do this yoga fest and be a vendor and speak. And she had to have me there. So we had just got back from Aruba. I was only home in LA for 3 days, packed back up, flew to DC, drove down to Asheville, North Carolina, and then I got back this morning. So I still do PR consulting, so I'm still able to dibble and dabble and do other things and go where I'm called. And most recently, I took a position with the Children's Media Association. And again, I'm new in the children's media space, and I reached out. I had spoke to someone who used to work at Nickelodeon. She was a writer, and she was like, you need to go to Kids Screen this year. This was back like late last year. You need to go to Kids Screen and you need to join CMA. And I was like, I'd never heard of CMA. Like, what is CMA? I went on the website. I saw that they have volunteer positions available. I reached out, I applied, and Susie, who was the president, she said, like, I have two positions for you. Do you want to be like the director of communications, or do you want to be the global co-director of events? And yes, I have the background in communications and writing press releases and all that stuff, but I want to be kind of in the forefront. Like I want to speak to these people that if I email them now, right now, they probably won't respond to me, right? My email will probably go right in their spam folder. But if I'm reaching out on behalf of CMA, which is a respected children's media organization, to hear their story and to talk to them and how they do things, they'll reply to me. And now I have new relationships. And that's exactly how it works. I started volunteering with them at the top of the year. I went to Kids Screen for free. And if you've never heard of Kids Screen, it's a very expensive conference for all types of kids executives that work from Nickelodeon, Paramount to BBC in London. It's a mishmash of like all of these amazing executives and panels. And so I was able to go there for free with CMA. And just again, going where I'm led and just doing what I love, everything has come so easy. Like I am like the coolest person at CMA on the event. Like I just love it. Like I started out doing a chat with last week I did a chat with Pixar, like the writers, the two writers from Inside Out 2. Inside Out 2 is now the highest grossing animated film of all time. And I got to chat with both of the writers, Dave and Meg, both of the psychologists who were on the film as consultants. And we talked about animation and emotions and how it all worked. I did something with Gracie's Corner on YouTube, the two founders, the husband and wife, and Mark Cantone from Nickelodeon. Tomorrow I have a podcasting, part 2 of my podcasting, panel that I'm moderating. Fraggle Rock, Back to the Rock. I chatted with all of the puppeteers and the producers. And then later next month in August, I'm chatting with Miss Rachel, the YouTube sensation for all little kids. So I'm, again, going where I'm led. Things are just working out. And again, CMA is not a paid position, but you can't tell me that this isn't payment enough. The people I'm meeting and the feedback I'm getting from just moderating the panels and, people who are watching it and how much they're getting out of it. Again, just going where I'm led, I'm just always good at what I do when I go where I'm led. Now, again, if I try to be somebody's therapist, psychologist, or the gardener, I'll probably suck bad. But if I go where I'm led and I do what excites me and it's where I want to go and where I want to be, it always works out in my favor. it always works out in my favor. And I don't think I'm some special unicorn. I think I'm cool, but I don't think I'm this special unicorn. I think that holds true for anybody. Everything will work in your favor. Nothing is happening, nothing's happening to you. Like, believe that everything is happening for you. And these are some, as I end, because it's almost 12 o'clock on the dot. As I end, I had gave the commencement speech at my high school about 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And I believe this myself. So I'm not just saying this if you're a college student. This is for you and whatever new dream that you have at whatever age you are. You have dreams and gifts in you that no one else has. Like, what an honor that is, right? An idea in you that no one but you can make happen, right? What a privilege that is, that I get to bring, that Passport Poppy was my idea. Like, what a privilege that is. So take care of your gifts, right? Honor your gifts. Bring your ideas to life. The world needs them. We need your ideas. Whatever you're sitting on, we are waiting for you. The greater good, we're all waiting for you. Like, whatever you have, we can all benefit from it. And you already have built in you the ability to accomplish any and everything if you gain experience, right? If you stay prepared and fearless in your pursuit. And then last but not least, I would love to stay connected with all of you amazing people. Here's my personal website, Well and Known's website, the Passport Poppy website, and of course the Passport Poppy YouTube. And that's it. I'll shut up now. That hour went by so fast.
It truly did, Aneesha. The world has worked in our favor to have you here
Yes. And
sharing
I'm
your
so excited
experiences.
always to come back. Like, every time I chat, I always connect with people who I stay connected with, People message me on LinkedIn and want to connect and chat, and I'm all for it. Let's do it. You're here to help me just as much as I'm here to help you. Or, I don't know if I can help you, but this is we work together for the greater good.
Yep, and in the follow-up email, I'll include the PDF for the presentation and all of those links. So if you're frankly trying to write them down now, don't worry about it. You'll get them very soon. So let me go ahead and read some of the questions. And if folks out there, if you have questions, now is the time to put them in the Q&A, and we'll do our best to get to them. So I think the first question came way at the beginning
Huh?
of the presentation, and I think it probably can be answered related to the variety of experience that you've had. And that is, what did you respond to interview questions?
Um, so interview questions, I was very honest. Like, I didn't say to them, like, when they asked about because I knew the questions would come up. So my thing was, when I went to the interview, I knew I didn't have the experience, right? So if they said, "Oh, well, what'd you do at this job?" Like, let's say it was a PR job that I was interviewing for, and I didn't have a PR job I was coming from. So I knew I
Mhm.
couldn't answer those specific questions. So that's why my thought was, let me show them what I can do, because my resume doesn't tell them what I can do. So let me show them what I can do. So that's how I kind of played into that. Like, let me show you, my experience doesn't say I've ever written a press release, but let me show you that I can write one. So yeah,
So you thought ahead to how you would take care of those questions in case they came you kind of in
absolutely.
your research.
And you can always Google, like, what questions were asked in your interview for this role. And
Mhm,
people on Reddit or whatever platform, they'll say what type of, questions were asked, and you
mhm,
can, practice from there. But for me, my thing was showing them, because I couldn't really tell them.
mhm. That makes sense. You anticipated the questions and then you prepared for them.
Exactly.
How do you set up your resume with so many different jobs?
Oh, okay. So my resume is long. At this, like, I would tell my students at FITM, take off the job at the fast food restaurant. If you're applying for a job in fashion, take off the fast food job restaurant in high school, right? Because they know you're just graduating college. So put all of your internship skills and things like that on there. Um, I think now my resume it's literally in chronological order. And I think my resume helps me, because when I was leaving E News going into fashion, they thought that was the coolest thing. You worked at E News, and even like going into E News, leaving Music Choice and in sports, they talk to athletes and about music and artists all the time. So I think maybe that showed them, like, oh, she knows about, artists and music. And so maybe that helped me get that job. But honestly, I don't I don't cut anything off my resume. It's about 2.5 pages, and it is what it is.
It's like it seems like with everything else, you mean you just dare to have a long, most people say, oh,
It's
resume
what it
is
is. I don't.
it's got to be 2 pages, but you just
Yes,
be like,
it is what it is. And if they don't want to read it, but what I do at the top of my resume, I haven't sent my resume out in so long, but at the top of my resume is a paragraph, which really
"Mm,
sums up everything I did, right? Like I'm a multi-hyphenate creative in sports. I've worked across sports programming. So I kind of start out with that blurb. This way, if they're interested, they can continue on reading. But I feel like every job I've had helped me get the other one. So I never want to cut anything out.
yeah, I have a buddy who also he's a library director, and his resume is like 3 or 4 pages, and he's just like, you know what, I want them to know, the
Yeah.
jobs I'm applying for, I want them to see the various experiences that I've had.
And I don't want to cut myself short because if I
Mhm,
take out one of these jobs, they may say, well, wait, what did you do in this 4-year block? You didn't have a
mhm.
job, So put it all in there. I don't know who made up the rule that it has to be 2 pages, but at this point, who cares? Dare to get it. Put it all in there.
So the next question is, Anisha, do you do one-on-one consults? How can we learn more about your work?
Yeah, like if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, or my website has my AneeshaDuBois.com has my email. Just send me an email and I'm happy to chat. Like there's someone who watched me after anytime I do a panel with CMA with like these big, executives and amazing cool writers, I always get people message me on LinkedIn and say, "Can you chat?" Sure, absolutely. We can chat for 15, 20 minutes and like I'll learn about you and I can tell you, my experience. So I don't really call like one-on-one consults, but feel free to reach out to me. And someone did that. I'm chatting with her on Friday. I think she's about to graduate in working kids media from like UCLA or something. I'm like, yeah, let's chat. Listen, because she's graduating from UCLA, I might need her one day. And she'll probably remember that I took the time to chat with her. So yeah, just message me.
There are people out there right now who are like, I wish I could, I really want to
Do it.
do it.
Do it. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. Like there's no worst. Just do it.
You're nice. I think it's okay.
Same.
All right, let's see. If you're a parent of a child actor, how can you encourage your kids to keep the dream up?
If you're a parent of a child actor,
Yeah, I think it's more like a general question and but
yeah,
specific to you because you passport poppy.
yeah, so for me, I really can't speak directly to it because again,
Mhm,
I know there's a lot of parents out there who kind of, have made their kids the stars and they're super successful at it. But like I homeschool Poppy. And so
mhm,
I want her to be as innocent and remain a kid and stay in her little kid, like her kid zone, as much as possible. When we go on vacation, I don't want her to have to work. I'll work, I'll dip
mhm.
off to the side and record the puppet under a palm tree. But um, I don't really know. I kind of just go with her. But I will tell you that my daughter does a lot of things, right? And I show interest in all of her passions. I show interest in all of her likes until she can choose the one she loves, right? So right now she does equestrian lessons. She rides horses. She does equestrian lessons. She does dance at the Debbie Allen Dance Academy. She swims, which is like she has to learn how to swim. We travel too much for her not to know that. But swimming is not negotiable. But she swims. The other day, we were thinking about taking her out of dance in the fall, and because she wants to do gymnastics, but she's so great at dance. So we kind of got to figure out how we can do her once with what we know she's really great at. But I just listen to my kid, and if she were to tell me she doesn't want to do, equestrian, I can say, let's not do it. You've done it for a year. And if you want to pick it back up, in 2 more years, let's do it. But right now, everything she does, she really, really loves. And so, yeah.
And so the next question kind of transitions elegantly. So do you sleep? But seriously, how do you do everything you're
Yeah.
doing, including volunteering? Do you have a support system like childcare, nannies, and housekeepers and personal assistants, etc.?
No, it's just me. I mean, my child's father as well. He's here too. But I work from home, so I'm able to dedicate. Sorry, my kid popped up right now. I work from home, so I'm able to I will say this, I'm very, very good at like managing things and time commitment and time. I'm really, really good at that. So I wake up at 4 a.m. I love it. When it's quiet, I wake up, it's 4 a.m. And I do that so that I can get a good 2.5, 3 hours of uninterrupted work in before she wakes up. And then her animals wake up. She's like, I have a zoo in here. She has 2 African sulcata tortoises, a bearded dragon. Like, it's a lot going on in here. So when I wake up, I had those 3 hours that I can dedicate to all the different things. And again, I'm not spending like 10 hours on one thing. I give my attention to it. I go where I'm led and I move on to something else. But I'm really good at time management. I get up very, very early. I go to bed kind of early. And again, nothing seems too hard or too difficult because everything I'm doing is what I love. Like, for instance, for CMA, when I'm curating the questions or the run of show, it probably takes me about an hour and a half. So that's an hour and a half, and I only have maybe 3 to 4 events a month. So it's nothing I'm doing is too time consuming. I'm able like to stop down, take her somewhere, stop down, do something else, and just come back to it. But I do sleep. I do sleep.
Thank you. I hope so. So another question here. I don't know how much direct experience you have with this, but maybe you have some thoughts and suggestions. I'm planning to start a talent company for kids. How can I collaborate with others or build relationships to promote my talents?
Can you say that one more time?
So I'm planning to start a talent company for kids.
Okay.
How can I collaborate with others or build relationships to promote my talents?
To promote the talents that she has, I think it just depends on what the kid wants to do. So I know when it comes to like kids in the business, I know I can talk about the voiceover part because like I know like I really know like that part of it. And I think it all comes down to relationships. Like, I know some of the jobs that I get, especially when it comes from Nickelodeon, I know it's because, my agency Atlas, they have a really great relationship with the producers at Nickelodeon. So when they're looking for talent, they may come right to Atlas, or they may go elsewhere too. But I think it comes down to relationships and putting yourself out there. So if you have the kids with the amazing talent, who needs that talent? Nickelodeon needs that talent. Paramount, Disney Channel needs that talent. So just finding who needs that talent and finding who that person is. So whether it's saying, and then I think you have to work with like SAG-AFTRA and kid labor laws and all that stuff. So maybe start there with the unions. And then, just going to events. So whether it's Kid Screen, where all of the casting people are for everything. Kid Screen is next year. It's in February every year in San Diego. Well, it's going to be in San Diego again this year in February. Well, next year in February. But just putting yourself in those spaces to meet the people who need what you have. So that would be my advice.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So next question, similar to the sleep question. You're so positive, self-confident, and energetic. How do you do it? Your belief system, your habits, etc. So time
Yeah.
management is one. We know that one.
I'm really big. I have like really strong faith, like in going where I'm led. Like, I wasn't led to come here for no reason, right? I didn't stumble upon this for no reason, right? Like, things just always work out. Like, who would take a plane and land an hour and 15 minutes before they're supposed to do a presentation and think they're going to make it, right? I have faith that all things are always going to work out. Mind you, we're still on like the delays from the Microsoft glitch, which I was caught in leaving Aruba, but like there was no glitches. Like, going to DC a few days ago, my flight was delayed 3 hours. There was no delay. Like, everything, it just works how it's supposed to. But I really believe in the universe and, of course, God and manifestation. I'm a big believer in manifestation, and thoughts become things, and just speaking. Like, if I speak it, then it has no choice but to come true. And it may be in a different, I may think I'm going to go, like, if this is my goal, I may think this is the route, but maybe the route is like this to get me there, So I'm always believing that I'm going where I'm led, I'm meeting who I'm supposed to meet, and it's taking me, where I need to be. And again, I believe that nothing happens to you. Like, nothing bad is happening to you. Like, Australian fashion labels wanting to let me go, nothing bad. That wasn't a bad thing. You can if you want to look at it like that, then of course it'll be a bad thing. But it wasn't a bad thing because it led me to entrepreneurship. And then a year later, COVID and the pandemic happens, and then they're laying people off left and right. And now Australian fashion labels, the owners were husband and wife. They actually sold the company. They don't even own the company anymore. So it worked for me because had I been there, I would have been fired with nothing, and I was able to leave with a severance. Same thing at Comcast Sportsnet. Them hit that man saying to me what he said to me was like, okay, I should leave. And I planned my strategy, and a month, 2 months later, 3 months later, they said, hey, we're transitioning your position. If you want to apply, you can, but here's a 3 month severance if you don't want it. Like everything just works how it's supposed to. And again, things will be hard and trying times and like, shoot, is this where I'm supposed to be? But I just keep going where I'm led. I'm only doing what I love and what I want and what I'm passionate about doing. And it's really working out in my favor. So I would be foolish to think, otherwise.
Yeah, so this next question actually fits in with that kind of idea of the universe and where you're led. So this question is, I was laid off a few months ago from a workplace that no longer suited me. Do you have any advice for someone learning to reconnect with themselves? Figure out how
Um,
do you know where you're being led?
Uh, your passion. It goes back. It sounds so cliche to say, but like there's this quote out there, whatever you would do like for free is like what you should be doing, right? If I wasn't getting paid to do voice acting, I would still want to do it. If I wasn't being paid to do Passport Poppy, like with ads and things like, I'd still want to do it because I love to travel. I love showing my child the world, and I want to show other kids the world. So, like if you weren't getting a salary, what would you be doing? What would you still want to do, even if you weren't being paid for? And start there. Like, what do you love so much that it can't leave your head? This idea that you have that won't let you sleep, and you're seeing signs like that like this is like this is what you should do. Like, just think about that, and then like use it as a starting point. And I don't like I think too, like you being laid off, like that was kind of maybe God or I don't know your belief system, but that could be the greater good pushing you because you would have stayed there for however many years, but it's pushing you out because there's something else that you need to be doing. There's another purpose that you need to be fulfilling. And if you believe that, everything will start working in your favor.
The next question, I think this looks like the last question that we have here. So if you have questions, anybody out there, it's time to put them in right now because this here is the last question that I see on my screen. And if it's going to be the last one, then it's the last one. It's kind of similar to the one that we had. So maybe there's something else to add or something comes up based on the formulation of the question. And that is, what advice do you have for someone who's very interested in entrepreneurship, but just doesn't know exactly what to do? So this person wants to start a business where I can work from home, but I don't know exactly what I want to do. Any tips?
I think that's like kind of twofold question because like if you want to work from home but you don't really care what you do. So let's say if you want to work from home, you just want to work from home, right?
Mm.
To be at home for whatever
So
reason.
it's like one value, one
Yeah,
important value,
yeah,
work from home.
you can like literally you can like there's so like call center jobs or review things. I
Mm.
always see on Instagram like you can work from home and review products.
User
So I
generated
don't know.
content created
Yeah,
USG. Or
yeah. Like
anyway,
you could do that and work from home, but then like if you want to be an entrepreneur and there's ideas you have, the first step is just doing. Like you can say, "Oh, I need the money first," and like I just step by step. Like Passport Poppy started with one book. I had no idea about a puppet, flashcards. I just wanted to write a book about my daughter living between here and Washington D.C. And from that book became a second book. Then I had the idea for the flashcard, the travel cards, because we were in Amsterdam and we were at a cafe and she looked down and she saw an excavator and she learned what an excavator at 3 years old. She knew what an excavator was from watching Blippi. And I was like, oh, I can do the ABCs of travel because kids, when you look at the cockpit, that's not called like a steering wheel. It's called a yoke. So I can teach kids the ABC, like, so all of these ideas were coming as I kept going. I just kept going. And then I was like, okay, well, I want to take kids along with me and Poppy on these travels, but I don't want her to be the talent. Okay, well, you do voiceovers, have a puppet made. I found a woman who worked in Eagle Rock. I sent her photos of my real Poppy and she made me the puppet Poppy. And I now travel the world with this puppet Poppy. So it's just, and again, as I was doing those things, I went on GoDaddy.com and I secured PassportPoppy.com. I went on the trademark website and I saw, was anyone else doing something called Passport Poppy? And I kept securing things, the Instagram handles, the Twitter, whatever handles. I just kept securing things one by one. I didn't have the $3,000 it took to do the first book, but I went and I found on Upwork, I found an illustrator, one thing at a time. And I started with her. And then I found the copywriter. I wrote the book, and then I went on Fiverr and I found a copywriter, and he just makes sure it's, he makes sure that all my grammar is correct. And again, just one step at a time, and like, look where it's led me. I'm like, now Passport Poppy's on YouTube Kids. I'm 3 books in and flashcards in, and it's working out. I've done collaborations before, with like some guy who owns a hot air balloon company in Temecula and some whale watching company I want to do at the top of the year. And again, it started with one step, one idea. About 2.5 years, 3 years ago, one idea, and I just kept going, step by step. So when I got extra money, here you go, Fiverr. Here you go, Illustrator. Okay, now I have $2,000 came in from one of my voiceover things. Okay, let me get my books done. And I found a manufacturer in China that the people who do my books do all the books for all of the Scholastics and Penguin House, Random House, and all that stuff. So one step at a time, just go where you're led. What do you want to do? What do you really want to do? What do you want to bring to life? How do you want to help the world be better? And with Passport Poppy was me. I wanted kids to see the world. Like, it's the most amazing thing when my kid, she's the only kid, and we go to Africa, and like, she's made a best friend with a little girl at a Montessori. Like, it's just the most amazing thing to watch her interact with. We were in Switzerland in April, and there was a 4-year-old in the hotel we were at, in the lobby. The little girl spoke Swiss German. Poppy speaks English, and you would have never known. You would have thought they spoke the same language, the way they understood, and they played, they were running around. And mind you, the mom spoke Swiss German, so the mom tried to come over and ask me, if she could get them ice cream, but she didn't know English. I didn't know Swiss German. So she had like mimic like licking an ice cream cone. Like, I'm like, but our kids, you would have never known. And like, that's what I want kids to see, the world, and just how empathetic Poppy is, and how polite she is, and how she makes friends wherever, and nothing matters. It's just connecting and with people. And that's what I want to, show kids until they're able to go by themselves. So yeah.
Aneesha, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing your energy with us. I think all of us are walking away from here with a little bit of that energy, a little bit of that inspiration.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
very much appreciated.
Yes,
Folks
I'm
out
always
there,
grateful to do this. Thank you so, so much. I
of
appreciate
course.
you. Again, every time I see your email pop up, I'm like, yes, whatever you need, let's do it.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say to folks out there, I have one request. I'm going to put a post-event survey in the chat if you have a few moments. Fill that out. It's very important to us to know what we did well and what we could do better and what topics you want us to cover in the future. So let us know. And thank you for being here. Thank you for asking your questions. Aneesha, thank you again so much. And
Thank
we'll
you.
see you next time.